Hello, folks. If you're watching, this is kind of a warm up, and I'm told I talk too fast, and I have to talk slower. So, if you think I'm talking too fast, email us and let us know. We're going on the air in about 2 more minutes, but we thought we'd give you a little bit of behind the scenes. We'll make some introductions. You all mostly know who this young lady is. Veronica's behind the scenes. She's the one that puts everything together. And if you ever want a website or anything like that, that's what Veronica does. She's got her head down in punching her cell phone doing something, I'm not sure what. We're going to be talking about these products. I'll remind you, if you want to, we'll mention it again, but if you want to email a question and you do it, we'll do our very best to answer it on the air during this show. Don't see me run out of things to say very often. But if whatever I say, folks, if you're watching now, thanks for tuning in. I'll just repeat again. So we'll just kind of take our time. Veronica, do you do it with the fingers where you go 10, 9, 8, where we're on the air kind of a thing? Well, why don't you start doing that? Maybe get some big numbers and you can just slide them, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. How much more time before we go on the air? We're on the air now? Oh, hi there. Okay. All right, so this is, my name's Jerry Gagne. Program is called Foy's on Facebook, talking to Veronica behind the scenes, and this is our 7th one. Just seems like we do it every other week if you're first tuning in. And it seems like it just goes by so fast. Seems like we just did one, and here 2 weeks, and we're doing another one. My name, of course, is Jerry Gagne from Foy's Pigeon Supplies. This young lady is not Gina. Well, you may have noticed that. Gina's got the worst disease you could possibly get in our business. She can't talk. She's hoarse, and all she can do is whisper. So the call went out, and Kim Hare stepped forward and volunteered willingly. She said, "Oh, I'm so excited about doing this." But Kim is the president of the corporation. If you've dealt with us over the last number of years, how long have you been with us?
22.
22 years. So Kim's been around for a while, and if you've dealt with us, I'm certainly you've talked to her. We remind you, of course, that if you, if you have a question, you're more than welcome. It's not, what do they call it? Not email. You email the message. Is that how you do it? I don't know much about computers. But send us your question on Facebook. How do you do it?
Just post it right on the wall, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can.
We're really getting good too. You notice we don't have microphones on. It's on the camera now because the last 2 times. One time we went on the air and forgot to put our microphones on, and one time I started to stand up and my microphone pulled off. So they've solved that problem by getting a different microphone. And the way it works is when you email things in, Veronica will type in the question, and there's a wall over here. It's amazing to me. And she'll type the question, and then we'll try our very best to answer it. You may want a pen and pencil. I'm going to give out my home phone number in case you need to ask a question. You can always call me at home. So welcome to you all. Kim. My name's Jerry. I've done the introduction. Something I need to do is, these are questions, is make sure that you understand. I'm a pigeon veteran, so to speak. Had pigeons on and off for 67 years. Spend most of my days now researching and answering questions, but I'm not a veterinarian. If you have a serious illness or any kind of an illness, I'm always more comfortable if you call your veterinarian first. Find a veterinarian that can help you out. That's always the best thing to do. I know when I have serious questions that I can't answer, even after research, I have some good friends who are veterinarians, and I call them and we discuss it. Someone sent us an email and asked us to show them or show you folks what I use when I clean my loft, because I use, I call it is a pitchfork, really made of a really strong plastic. I've been using it for years now, but lo and behold, I can't show it to you because number one, we're out of them. Don't have one here at the store. They're on their way, I believe. Or are they? Did we drop them, or are they on the way? think
I
we
would
dropped.
have to look into
Yeah, I
it.
think we might have dropped them. But anyways, I was going to show you, and I've used it for years and it hasn't broken. But we'll talk about that in a future show. We did get some questions in before, I guess, over the last few days. And a gentleman by the name of Dave Blondo called, and he's the one that asked about the pitchfork. So, Dave, Gina, she just stuck her head in here, smiled because she's not on the show. If you didn't get the message earlier, she can't talk above a whisper. I'm not so sure that's a bad thing. Let's see. Another question we got was from Robert Garrett, and he was interested in some information about self-watering, all the different systems there are. And once again, for me to answer the question, we have so many choices, it would be best for you to call me at home, and I'll go over it. And that way we can go back and forth with questions, because just for me to talk about a self-watering system or automatic watering system, it would be difficult, because when I give an answer, you might have a question. So here again, if you've got a pencil and paper, I'm going to give you my home phone number. I ask that you try not to call after 5 o'clock Eastern, because we're on the East Coast, so we're in Eastern time zone. If you call me and you're in California, and it's, let's say 5 o'clock, well, it's 8 o'clock at night at my place. I've got calls, and I'm not complaining, but I've shared with you before. By the way, I'm quarter Irish. So we also had where's that thing, Kim? Let me show them. Just so we were decorating for, my mind wanders sometimes.
I see
So,
that.
Happy St. Patty's Day. There you go. Didn't want to waste that. It's a sign of spring to me. Anyways, call me, my home phone number, 724-359-5355. My cell phone went through my head again, but that's my home phone. If you can't get a hold of me, it's all right to call Foy's. Kim or any of the girls will tell you where I'm at, or if I'm gone, when I come back, they'll give me their phone number or your phone number. Also, when you call me at home, many times I'm out feeding the birds or just doing something like a normal person might be. You don't have to leave a message. If you let it ring for a while and nobody answers, when I get back, the number is there. What did I say wrong?
I'm sorry. Somebody just asked, where's the Facebook queen?
Where'd that come from? Was it up there?
No, it's on there. Sorry,
Oh,
Grandma,
where's the
she can't
Facebook?
talk.
Would that be Queen Gina?
That would be Queen Gina.
All right. Anyways, Robert, give me a call at home. We'll discuss the self-watering system. Then a gentleman by the name of Alfonso asked if we would discuss canker. It's interesting that you should ask that, because Veronica and I are working on a new book, and it's going to be on pigeon health through my eyes. Nothing wrong through a veterinarian's eye, so to speak. But what I'm trying to do is write a book that is current and is in layman's terms. When I'm writing this book, and the reason I'm mentioning the book, it's not available yet, so please don't try to order it. It takes 2 to 3 years to write a book. But it'll be more up to date, and I get so many questions, I'm going to turn those questions into a book and a lot of other things. But the one that I sent to Veronica yesterday was on canker, so we can talk a little bit about canker. When you talk about canker, it generally affects the babies, the young birds. The reason for that is all pigeons carry the protozoa, which is canker, trichomoniasis. But the older birds have an immunity to it. They're born with it, and they can usually fight it off, and older birds aren't affected very often. The only time they are is when it becomes a secondary infection. They get the canker because they're sick with something else, and their immune system is weakened, they get canker. But the way the babies get it, and it's purposeful the way they get it, the parents, as you know, both the male and the female feed the young ones. Well, the parents having the immunity, but still when they feed the young one through the pigeon milk or through the feed, they're giving the babies a very small dose of canker. And with this controlled small dose, the babies develop an immunity. But they're very susceptible as young birds, and the immune system hasn't built up the immunity to canker, so that's why they have a tendency to have it with young ones. A lot of people may not be the right term, some people get confused. There's canker, dry form, there's canker, what's called wet form, and there's a disease called sinusitis. Think of sinus. And that's a drainage of the nasal passages, and what happens is the mucus dries in their throat, or mostly in the top of their beak, the bottom of their top beak, or the top of the bottom beak. Which would it be? Do you think it makes any difference? Don't mind me, folks. But the one that I was talking about with the mucus is actually dried. Am I allowed to say snot?
Sure, you can say
it's
whatever
dried
you'd like.
snot, and it's sort of like when you pick your nose, you get that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in that mood today, folks. So it dries up. The way you can tell the difference for sure. Number one, canker, that most of the canker you see is in the throat. Number two, if you try to pull that canker out, it's grown tentacles. It's going to bleed when you pull it out. When you try to remove the dried mucus, it comes right off. No big deal, no blood, no nothing. But tomorrow it'll be there again because it's still draining. So getting back to canker, a lot of people think you need an antibiotic to treat canker. You do not, because canker is not a disease. In fact, it's what's called a protozoa. Worms are a protozoa, coccidiosis, and canker. For want of a better term, they're little tiny bugs that you might be able to see under a microscope. So antibiotics have absolutely no effect on them. You need specific drugs to treat that. Some drugs will treat canker and coccidiosis at the same time, but we'll stay with canker medicines. The canker medicine for dry canker, and that's what you see down in the throat, that looks like cottage cheese. And looking like cottage cheese, you almost always know that you've got canker. It's in the throat, not at the roof of the mouth. We're going to talk about the treatment of canker. Kim's going to hand me, and each product I'll talk to you a little bit about them. So just hand me one if you would, and with no particular sequence. This product is called Aviosol. Would you hand me the other one right next to it, the black label? Okay, they're both Aviosol. They're both made by the same company, and they're both, the drug of choice is ronidazole. Ronidazole has been around for a long time, and there's another question as we go further on that asks about treating for canker and so forth. With ronidazole, it's the safest. If you're breeding, have young ones in a nest, this is the drug of choice to go to, because a lot of them are more harsh. And remember at the beginning I told you that the canker usually affects the young ones, so you need to give them an antibiotic that's not terribly strong. When people call me and they say, I'm breeding or I have babies, can I use ronidazole? And I tell them, if you're going to make a choice, if you're going to treat, and if you do have canker, what's your choice? You have to treat, you're going to lose the young ones. So I recommend ronidazole. And ronidazole at 10%. There's two formulas. This is 25%. So as a preventative, you might want to use this before breeding season, about 8 weeks before breeding season. It's the 10%. If you have a full-blown case of canker, then you know if one bird's got it, the rest of them have probably going to get it. Not all of them, but some of them will, because it's passed through the parents, through the drinking water that the parents drink and give to the babies, or through the feed. So it's best to treat 8 weeks before. If you've got a case of it and really becoming a problem, you may, first of all, if you've got multiple birds, you want to go to the 25% to cure it. But in talking about curing it, you may want to start out with capsules. Ronidazole does come in capsule form, and you're going to be treating individually. It's not a one-day treatment. Well, there is one product that's a one-day treatment, but most of them are 5 to 7 days. The advantage of treating with a capsule or a tablet is that when you do it that way, you're absolutely sure the bird's got it. When you're putting it on a feed and putting it in the drinking water, you're assuming the parent ate and gave it to the young ones. Maybe they didn't eat as much today as they will tomorrow, so the dosage isn't exact. But when you give a pill or a capsule, it's an exact. Did I miss anything that you can think of? All right, give me another one and we'll talk about it. So first of all, ronidazole is the most common. I was reading a little bit about ronidazole in a couple of different books, and in both cases, they warn you that you have to rotate. Now with ronidazole, you can give it 2, 3, 4 times, but by the third or fourth time, you've got to switch to a different drug because the birds are going to start developing a resistance to that drug. So if you think you can use the same product all year or year in, year out, you're mistaken. Every time you use it after 3 or 4, it's going to lose its effectiveness. This product is metronidazole. Been around a long time, and when I tell them to use metronidazole, a lot of them say, I've never heard of it. Well, a lot of you have heard of Emtrol. When I was young, that was the drug of choice, and Emtrol was used. Well, metronidazole is the same as Emtrol. Excuse me, I said Emtrol, I meant Flagyl. So that's another good product. It goes in the drinking water, very, very effective. And maybe all of the rest of them we're going to talk about, with few exceptions, are going to be your rotating drug. So you rotate with ronidazole to something else. And let me have another one, please. Okay, this is Emtrol. Now we call it Dimetrol, but it is Emtrol. It's one of the drugs that's very, very effective, but comes with a little bit of a warning. It's strong. So when you're giving it, I tell people, and I'm pretty sure we have it in our catalog that way, and it's on the internet that way, or on our website, don't use it during very hot weather, because in very hot weather, the birds drink more water. There's always a possibility of overdosing. So with dimetrodol, another good product. A lot of people order it just because they've used it in the past. So, and it's also effective. There are some resistant strains, because canker is not one thing, it's a whole bunch of strains. One drug might work on one strain, the other one might work on a different strain. So if you use something like dimetrodol or metronidazole, you may want to switch back and forth. If something doesn't work, try another drug. Give it a little bit of a break, give some probiotics in between, and then try the drug again. Pox vaccine. There's a question that somebody's emailed, and I'm looking up there. Any pox vaccine in the future? See, Kim, you didn't even have to sit here, did you?
No, I did not.
I can talk and talk. I'm going to take my hat off. No. To the best of our knowledge, pox vaccine is not in the pipeline, so to speak. I know of no one that is producing it. If and when it is in the process of being produced, we'll certainly talk about it on this show. Just like at the last show, we were very excited to let you know that paratyphoid vaccine is now available through us.
PMV.
Did I say PMV?
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Kim.
See,
so
need
you
me.
are needed. PMV vaccine is now out, and if you need it, we have it. But if you think you're going to need it in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we suggest that you order it right away, because we're going to run out. Now we're going to reorder, but everybody's in the same boat. All of the companies that sell the vaccines are in the same boat, and I have a feeling we're going to run out very, very quickly. And we don't know how fast we're going to get our reorders, hopefully right away, but they may have a problem too, the manufacturers. So I certainly suggest, you think it's a good idea?
Great idea.
Okay. So give Foy's a call or email us and order your product as soon as you possibly can. Now, I have another gentleman, Vahid. Can I put birds on amoxicillin while they're mating, just before they lay eggs? Would you want to read the question? I want to try to give you something to do.
Sure.
Okay, you read the next one. As far as amoxicillin, it again comes in 10%, 25%. The safest drug that you can use. When people have young ones, or during breeding season and they're laying eggs and so forth. I tell people don't use medication unless you absolutely have to. But if you feel you have no choice or you do have disease, in the loft, amoxicillin is my first drug of choice because it's the safest of all of the drugs. Was I talking about amoxicillin?
Yes.
Oh, by the way, very few of you people sent me a birthday card. I just had my birthday Sunday, and I think it was on email, wasn't it, or on Facebook or something?
Facebook, and you had lots of happy birthdays on Facebook.
The problem is, even though I'm on Facebook, I don't check out Facebook. There's just stuff about you want this friend or not want this friend, or click here or click there. So if you want me to send me a card or email me, I do. Why don't you give up my email address? Do you know what it is? I always forget.
His personal email is Jerry Gagne. That's spelled Gagne, if none of you know that, at foyspetsupplies.com. So that's Jerry Gagne at foyspetsupplies.com.
And Jerry's with a J because some people want to spell it with a G. I get that. In talking, once again, amoxicillin, a great product. And when I get calls and I'm really lost as to what to do, I will suggest amoxicillin to try first. And the good thing about it is you can go 14 days, you can go 21 days with amoxicillin. It is an antibiotic. It will treat a large array of different diseases. So when in question, amoxicillin. Let me have that tricholy stop.
Okay. Let me go back to the PMV vaccine, just to remind you that it's a good idea to order that PMV vaccine now, or any vaccine now, because with the colder temperatures, you don't have that outrageous shipping charge. It is recommended it's shipped second day air, but if you're on the East Coast and it takes 3 days or 4 days, you're absolutely fine in this colder weather.
And getting back to that, be careful when you're buying vaccines, whether it's PMV or paratyphoid, or you're buying pox and it happened to come overseas. All of the manufacturers of vaccines tell everybody, if you ship it, it has to be shipped with an ice pack, correct? We ship no vaccines without an ice pack. Now, when it's coming from Europe or China, how do you keep it cold? Unless you're paying $100 or more to get it overnight. I don't even know if it's possible. That ice pack in a couple of days is going to thaw and your product might get hot. Room temperature, the day you get it, put it in a refrigerator. But if it's not chilled, if that ice pack is completely thawed out and the product is hot, I'm not so sure it's going to work. So be very, very careful of that. Here's a product that came out a couple of years ago. It comes out of Norway. It's called Pigeon. It's made by Pigeon Vitality. It's called Tricholy Stop. First product came out was the capsules, and their claim to fame is it's 99.9% effective against canker for 1 day. Not 5 days, not 7 days. One capsule down the throat, and it is a capsule, so what you might want to do is wet it or put a little bit of vegetable oil in. It'll be slippery, a little bit more slippery to drop down their throat. Don't be worried about it. A lot of people call me and say, well, how do you get them to swallow it? What I do is I put it in their mouth and hold their mouth and gently stroke their throat. Then when I open the beak up again, if it's still there, with my little finger, I stick my finger right into their mouth and push it down their throat. Won't hurt them. Then they're forced to swallow it. 99% effective. So after the capsules were out and it became so popular, the general public asked, why can't you get a product that goes in a drinking water? And we discussed this with the people who manufacture it, and they did come up with a powder. So now we have in powder and in capsule form. Now I've never used the powder. I'm trying to see how often you use it. Oh, the heck, call us and we'll tell you. I got another one you want to talk about?
Yeah.
We have a question. Oh, go ahead. You read it off while I drink my Pepsi.
There was a question on what is the cost of the PMV vaccine. It is $139. That is a 100-dose bottle.
while we're talking about that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but the vaccine, a lot of people think if they do it once, the bird's immune for life. No. If you do it once a year, it's not going to work. It's every 6 months. Am I correct? So what we're talking about is treating your birds every 6 months as a preventative. There is no treatment, but as a preventative, PMV is a virus, no treatment. So keep that in mind. So when you buy a bottle that does 100 doses, that means if you're going to do 2 shots once, then 6 months later again, then you're going to need 2 bottles to do 100 birds, 1 bottle to do 50 birds. All right?
Yes.
I'm pretty proud of myself. All right. We're going to talk about Dr. Pigeon's trichocetes. A lot of you have been lucky enough over the many years that Dr. Pigeon was with us. His name was Muir Noggle. He was a genius when it came to pigeon and pigeon health, and people called him all the time. He would answer the phone at 11 o'clock at night. He just was one of those givers, give. He didn't care if you called him, and if you had a question, he'd stop at a show and talk to you for half an hour or on the phone. He'd just keep on talking until you get all your questions answered. Dr. Pigeon passed last year?
2 years, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he's gone, but before he went, and a year or so before he passed away, he and I got together, we talked about it, we made plans for the future. He knew he was ill, and he gave us all of the formulas, and we now manufacture all of Dr. Pigeon's products. So this one here, it's called trichocetes, which is an offshoot of trichomoniasis, which is what canker is. So it's a canker product. It's for prevention and treatment, goes in a drinking water. Have a question?
Just a note on the trichola powder. It does go on the feed. A lot of people think that goes in the drinking water.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because as I say, I hadn't used it. I'm trying to read. Dosage 1 heat measure, which is 8 grams on the grain, on 2.2 pounds of feed. I'm glad that was mentioned, because it's not a water product, it's a feed product. And once again, if you're going to sprinkle anything on the feed, it's a good idea. That cough, by the way, was Gina. She just joined us. She coughs loud, speaks low. What? You've become my ham now, Gina. We're sisters, by the way, if you don't know that.
Gina's jealous that I have to sit in for her today.
Dr. Pigeon also, he made a whole line of product. Does this treat canker? Why did you give it to me? Oh, okay. Sorry. See how professional we are, folks? Dr. Pigeon makes a product called One Drop, One Eye, One Time. And one of the people wanted for me to discuss it. Really isn't much to discuss it, except it's made for what we call one-eyed colds. We've talked about it in the past. And a one-eyed cold is really what it says. One eye gets wet and mucousy and dripping, and the birds will rub it on their feathers to try to dry it out. You'll see a stain sometimes on their feathers. That's what this is made for. I caution you, we get more calls on this product probably than most, complimenting us, telling us how great it is. A couple of drops in the eyeball, next day it's gone. But one-eye cold is respiratory, and respiratory is a family disease. It doesn't work 100% of the time. But if I were going to offer you a suggestion for one-eye cold, this would probably be my first. If it doesn't work, it's rare, but you have to be aware that if it doesn't work on a one-eye cold that you have, don't throw it away. Put it in the cabinet, keep it room temperature. The next one-eye cold, try it again. It might be miraculous and get rid of it. So that's what this is for. I hope I've answered the question. It's just a drop a bottle, hold a bird, drop it right into the eye if the eye is all cleared and so clogged up. You may want to use a little bit of boric acid to clean out the eye before you drop this in. And when you do use the one-eye drop, you'll see a foaming. It might scare you, but you'll see a little bit of a foaming. We have another question there. I know the one going up there, but is it the last one there?
Oh yeah, there's another question question that was sent in earlier from Charles Clark. I was looking at different medications the other day and came across the aviocox. It says it's good to treat for young bird disease. What is young bird disease?
Okay. Young bird disease, first of all, is a virus. As in all viruses, they're not treatable. They're preventable, but not treatable. So it's a form of circovirus. I'm going to one of the products that's recommended is a product called YBD. And by the way, that's Gretchen. Say hi, Gretchen. YBD stands for young bird disease. So what we're going to be doing is talking about the symptoms and treatment. And treatment is a misnomer. With young bird disease, you get involved in a lot of secondary infections. This will help with the secondary infections, the product itself, YBD, young bird disease. And it's young bird disease tells you that it's a disease mostly affecting young birds. What you'll see is the birds will fluff up. All pigeons that get sick will look lethargic and fluffed up. That's the first sign, but it doesn't mean they have it. It just means you've got a sick bird. Most of the time when these young birds get it, especially if it's a nest, droppings are going to smell to high heaven. Plain word, they're going to stink. Another one is they're going to be on the green side, very, very loose. So if you've got young in the nest or young on the floor, and you start to smell the droppings, and you look and they're green and watery, there's a good chance you've got young bird disease in your young birds. It's a killer, or can be. I've talked to people where they've lost up to 30% of their birds. Now, it's to scare you because there's no vaccine for it. There's nothing you can do. But if you do get it, you want to be sure to put them on a product called young bird disease. The other thing, if you do get it, the good thing, I suppose, if the birds survive it, you'll have no carriers. They're going to be basically immune to it, but they'll never will be a carrier of it either. So the product that we recommend is called YBD, young bird disease. It's a powder, and as I say, it won't treat it, but it'll treat the secondary infections, which will help the birds go through it. Another question?
What is the dose per bird per year on the new PMV?
0.25.
Yes.
1/4 of a cc. So when you get your syringes, we ship it with a syringe. It will be marked accordingly. In other words, you can figure out what 1/4 of a cc is, and it's not very much at all. And in talking about the vaccination, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but with vaccination, you've got to use a clean needle. Now, you don't have to change needles every time you vaccinate, but what I do is when you get your bottle, there's going to be a seal on it. You take the seal off, and underneath that is a rubber stopper. I take the needle without the syringe, and I stick the needle in top of the rubber stopper, and I leave it there. Then I take my syringe, I put it there, I suck out enough or fill it however many times I'm going to do, and then put it aside. Then I get another syringe, because let's say I'm going to do 20 birds. So then I stick another syringe into that needle that's in the bottle and suck it out. Now, both of those syringes have never, the needle's never been into the bottle. I put a new needle on each one. Am I confusing people?
I think so.
Okay. You want to tell them?
So whenever you open up your PMV bottle and you're ready to use it, you want to put one needle in that bottle of PMV and leave that needle there. That way, if you're going to only use a little bit of the vaccine, the next time you're ready to use it, that needle stays in that bottle at all times. You never take it out. So time to inject your birds again a few days down the road. You pull that bottle of vaccine out, and then you start with a brand new needle. You never remove that needle out of the bottle.
It's a lot better than mine did. Now I have to retract a statement. We both are wrong.
Why?
On the vaccine, now we're talking about the new PMV vaccine. Yes. Initially, I'm going to read this right off the directions that the veterinarian sent us. Initially, 2 vaccinations are recommended, 3 to 4 weeks apart.
I knew that.
Why didn't you correct me? And then 2 to 3 weeks prior to racing or breeding season. So what they're saying is it's best to vaccinate your birds before breeding season. Now, unless I'm wrong, it's done every 6 months, but would somebody check into that? Maybe we can get, I just want to be sure. Nowhere does it say this, so maybe the information
No,
I
that
read.
6 months I do not believe is correct.
Okay. Well,
This came directly from Dr.
you can see how professional we are. This came from Dr. K, so I apologize. It must have been the other one that I was thinking in 6 months.
May have been the
Okay.
previous one.
But anyway,
from overseas.
initially it's 2 vaccinations, 3 weeks apart, 2 to 3 weeks, a little bit longer before showing or breeding. My apologies, I gave some bad information. I think that's the first time I ever made a mistake.
I'm sure it is.
Oh, geez. Do we have, okay, we have a question. What's the question? While I look these notes over, go ahead. That's you?
Here comes the boss. Paratyphoid is 6 months.
Okay, what's the question?
When treating for bacterial infection, will the birds become more susceptible to canker? And if so, is it okay to preventively treat for canker at the same time?
I'm thinking, one's an antibiotic, the other one is not. I would say yes, you can. The reason I say that, if you look at the components or the drugs or the diseases treated in 3-in-1, 4-in-1 and 5-in-1, both 4-in-1 and 5-in-1 contain an antibiotic along with a canker medicine. So the answer to that, yes, you can do it. In talking about, do we have, give them, I know we have questions, give me another one of the other ones for canker, because we're trying, with Trizol, we'll put that on. There's a tablet form if you're interested in doing it in tablet form. We have something called Trizol, but the basic drug, once again, is the same as the one I've already talked about, which is ronidazole. One of the things I've learned more and more as I research for the book I'm writing on pigeon health, that many times one drug is good, but combined with another drug, it's much better. But you've got to be careful. So which ones to do it with? And we're going to be talking about another product, but Trizol is a combination of ronidazole. Remember I talked to you about that, and secnidazole. So secnidazole is put them two together, they're much more effective than if you use one and not the other. Then, is your, wanted to talk about, no, there was another one that has, give me that one again. I'll be right with your questions.
Tony's Treasure?
Yeah, Tony's Treasure, once again, if you're looking to do it in tablet form, this is the product. It really works well. They don't tell you what's in it in this particular one, but I know it's a combination of 2 different ones. There's a question on the board while I get something I was looking for.
Can we still use the Chivita P200 PMV?
If it's not outdated, and if you've kept it refrigerated and it was cool when you got it, the answer is yes. But if you brought it in from overseas yourself, don't know, might have, and if it was warm. So the answer to the basic question, yes, as long as it's kept cool and not outdated.
For the vaccine, if I have 50 adult birds and 100 young, how many shots would I have to give?
Well, it's 150 birds, so one container does 100 shots, is that correct? So 100 birds, you need 150 birds, you need 300. 300, so you would need 3 bottles, right?
That's for the new PMB that we have.
Yes, not for the one that was in.
I'm not sure if he was questioning the Chivita one or ours, so the 300 dose would be for the PMB that we sell. Have you heard of any outbreaks being reported?
That's kind of an odd question. Outbreaks of what?
PMB.
Oh, well, PMV is not necessarily an outbreak. PMV is a very common virus, been around for years and years in the United States and around the world. So there's always something going on with PMV. That's why so many people vaccinate. It's not a treatment, it's a preventative. So yeah, PMV is around, always will be. It isn't a particular outbreak like we had a few years ago. We had an outbreak of a virus that spread across the country. It killed thousands and thousands of pigeons. I haven't got any calls on that recently. What do you use when cleaning the coop, right? Have you met Gretchen? This is Gretchen. Hi, Gretchen. Say hi. Clean the coop brings us to something we wanted to talk about today, and that's some scrapers. Believe it or not, I enjoy cleaning my coop. Sounds strange, but when I'm out there with my birds cleaning the coops, it lets your mind wander because it's a mind-numbing process, but you're with the pigeons. I think I've shared with you before, my floors are wood, but over the wood floors, I put down a floor covering that we get out of Belgium. And since I've talked about it, we've sold so much of it, we're out of it. It's on its way. It comes out in Belgium, but it's on its way. So what I do, and that leads to the question we had at the opening of the show about a pitchfork. I cover my floors with about 2 or 3 inches of floor covering. It's actually ground up clay, and it's made in Belgium, and it has an anti-coccidiosis in it too, which helps keep down coccidiosis, and it helps keep the floors dry. I put all of my perches on the same wall so that the majority of the droppings go right down underneath the perches. So I can go in an 8x8 loft with, say, 40 birds, 35 birds, whatever it is, and use that pitchfork, and I can clean that entire floor within 5 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. That doesn't include the time it might take, because the first thing I do is scrape all the perches, all the droppings go down. When I use my pitchfork, I just go in, I've got a cardboard box, and I dump them into the cardboard box. Now, in cleaning the perches, this is great. Now, all of them will clean perches, but what this one does is I like to hit the perch and pull it to me so it goes on the floor. If you use this type of scraper, which is another type of scraper, you're pushing in towards the wall where the perch is, so you've got your droppings on here, or you've got to flip them over. With this, you just pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it. Makes it much, much easier. Also, pull it as a small chicken or a baby chicken. Did you know that?
No.
No, okay. This is a flat scraper, which we sell in a couple of different sizes. I like it. It's a steel blade, very, very strong. I like this because when you're scraping let's say a floor or in a nest box, this works well because it covers a big area. I like it when I'm cleaning the floor. When I've taken all of my floor covering out, then I scrape everything that might have seeped through, if that is the case. I like this one. This is all plastic. It's sharp up here. This is great for getting into small areas that you can't normally get into. As you know, I use flip-top feeders, wire guard feeders, and they're about this wide. Well, if you use this, you can't get inside, or this one is too wide. There's 2 versions, but if you have a wide feeder, you can get in. With the feeders I use, I like to get in there and scrape them. Makes it a lot easier with a narrow scraper. In a nest bowls and so forth, this works out real well too, or in places that you can't get at. So I hope I answered the question on the scrapers. Did I? Okay. Oh, I'm running out of stuff to say, and I got 20 more minutes.
That's hard to believe.
That doesn't work very often. It doesn't happen very often. VetRx, VETRX. This is the pigeon formula. This is a Canker product also. It comes in a little, let me get it out here and show you. Now, if you get a VetRx and it looks like it's been opened, this is the box you got, because I just tore it. Little tiny bottle, and what it is it treats respiratory, but it also treats canker by drying it up. So it's a popular product that has been around for years and years and years, and it's still a decent seller for us. So I know it does work. Another canker product we can talk about. Not that one, not that one, not that one. This one. And you'll notice most of the good canker products end with ZOLE, ronidazole, metronidazole. This one is called nidazole. And a little bit ago I talked about a drug that is a combination. It was secronidazole. That's what this is. It's a 5% ronidazole and 15% secnidazole. And very, very effective. It is a water treatment, 5 grams, which is about a teaspoon in a drinking water. So if you're going to rotate ronidazole and if you want to buy secnidazole by itself, you don't have to. You can buy it already combined with Canker, with ronidazole and secnidazole. So it's something I've used and found it to be very, very effective. Do we have another question there?
No.
No. Okay. Let me drink my Pepsi here. You got questions? Please, our email. How do they contact us again? You tell them.
Just post it right on the wall. Jeff B, I think you're the one that asked the question about that P200 Chivita vaccine, and then we had answered for our vaccine. So just to clarify it, the new vaccine, it's item number 501, the one that just came out. You will need 300 doses for the 150 birds, so you would need to purchase 3 bottles.
Okay. And once again, if you need to talk to me, sometimes when I'm doing this show, you'd like a follow-up question and we don't have the time. My home phone number, 724-359-5355. I'll give you as much time as you want. Normally I try to answer the phones between 9 and 5 Eastern Standard Time. That might be a good time to mention also that Foy sells pigeons, so if you're ever looking for good quality rollers or racing homers, I keep about 300 birds. I've got 5 lofts. If you're looking for really quality birds, do my best to buy, because I have to buy. I can't breed them all, but I do have 500 now. 300 now, 350, something like that. They're good quality birds. I get them from top breeders, and I only buy them, the racing homers, the race quality, from 2 different people. So I try to keep the quality up and get a lot of compliments on them. I know we've won races across the country with people have won them with our birds.
Gina just come in and asked a good question on the PMV. If you have used the other PMVs that we had in the past, and now you're using the new PMV that's available that just came out, do you only vaccinate once, or do you have to start fresh and vaccinate and then follow up with the booster shot?
Well, if you've got the old one, number one, I'd be concerned because the old one hasn't been available for a while, so you might have a expiration date on it, so you want to check that. But if you've got the old one, use it as it says on the bottle. If you don't have enough to do it, I would not first use the old one, the second shot the new one. You're going to do the new one, both shots. If you don't have enough to do both shots with the old one, I wouldn't do it at all, because one is oil-based and one is water-based, and they don't mix well together, which also brings me to the point in talking about the KM paratyphoid vaccine and the new KM PMV vaccines now are both water-based. So if you want to do both shots at the same time, you can actually mix them up and put them into the same syringe and give one shot instead of one shot for PMV and one shot for paratyphoid. Wow. Being water-based, you can actually open up both bottles and get a little bit bigger bottle if you want, mix them up, shake them up, one shot. The mixed vaccine treats both of them.
I learned something new today.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Question.
Following a bacterial infection and treatment, what measures should be taken to disinfect the loft?
Well, you've got it backwards, sir. You don't follow a bacterial infection and disinfect your loft. What you want to do is disinfect your loft and then treat with an antibiotic. In talking about cleaning, oxine is probably the best you can possibly find as a disinfectant, but you need a clean loft to do that. So what you want to do is clean your loft completely, let it dry, and then spray oxine all over the place. Even if it gets on the eggs, that's what I like about it. You don't want to do it intentionally, of course, but if it gets on the eggs or on the bird, absolutely no harm. Oxine is a form of chlorine, but made to be a disinfectant for the poultry industry, and of course it works on the pigeons also. Did I answer that question? First you want to clean and then use the antibiotics. Now I would mention, that brings something to mind, coccidiosis is the most common disease that pigeons get. Pigeons get that from a warm, damp environment. So whenever you're putting anything down on your loft, or if during breeding season and it's warm and the droppings are all collected in the nest boxes or on the floor, clean it every day if you can, unless you have a good floor covering that keeps it dry. Warm, moist leads to coccidiosis. So, and the other thing with coccidiosis, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but if you've got coccidiosis and you treat for it, you want to clean the floor after you treat it. The way it's, way it goes from bird to bird, there's it's an egg, O-O-C-U-S-T. Pronounce that one, Auguste. O-O, the only word I've ever seen starting out with two O's, O-O-C-O-S-T. And what happens is the eggs are laid, and that's called the Auguste. It goes to the floor. The birds peck at it and pick the Auguste up, and it reinfects them. So when you treat for cocci, always clean your floor the next day to make sure it doesn't continue to be a problem. I wanted to thank you folks too, because I know we're getting close to the end, and if you have a question, you still have time to email it in. But I was talking to Veronica. Her last name's Burnsworth, and if there's a problem with our show in the quality, don't call Kim. Call and ask for Veronica Burnsworth, and she'll explain the poor quality if it's different. Where was I? Oh, I wanted to thank you. Every time I come in after a show, I always check with Veronica and ask her how many people were taking advantage and what do you call it? Not checking in. What do they do? When they get on, when I want to check in on Facebook, they visit. Isn't that the word, or what do they do? All right, well, if you look at our program, what I'm trying to say, you told me earlier it's over 5,000. What's the word?
That have viewed it.
Yeah, views. We've had over 5,000 views since the last show 2 weeks ago. To me, that's really, really amazing that 5,000 people would take the time to look at it. And in talking about the show itself, if you tune in to the beginning and you have to leave, or you tune in the middle, or you tune in at the end of the program, after the show is over, this is our 7th one, you can go to, how long does it take? Tomorrow they'll see it, or today, or the whole program? Today. After the show, she gets real busy, and it'll be on our website. So you can actually go on the website and view the first 6, and then the one we did today, so you can play them as it's comfortable for you. So if you weren't able to visit with us today, and or you will visit for a little bit of time, then you can watch the show. Did I miss anything? Should we just cut the program off because people aren't emailing us with questions or whatever you call it?
Well,
you know, it seems like today everybody wants to correct me if I'm not correcting myself. Gina just typed in and said I spelt it wrong. Thanks, Gina. O-O-C-Y-S-T. Auguste. However, that's anyways, that's what we were talking about. I get calls time and time again. So if you're going to call me, and I've given you my home phone number, just thinking about it, I had a gentleman call me today. The first thing I want to know, it seems odd, but if you're going to call me, I'm going to ask you where you're from, because I need to know what weather you're experiencing, because good weather, bad weather, it's important as to what's going on. So I'm going to ask you that. Then I'm going to ask you what breed you're calling about, whether it's something as small as a dove or as large as a giant runt. It has to do with the dosage, and some diseases are Am I talking too much with my hands?
No, you're
So
fine.
you were looking at my hand. I want to put them over here. If you are calling about a small bird, the dosage, and some birds, like let's say an oriental frill, has more of a tendency to get a one-eyed cold than other breeds. So I want to ask you what breed you have. Then I'm going to ask you the symptoms. And so many times people can't answer the simple questions. So if you're going to call me, it would be nice to know what's the consistency and what's the color of the pigeon poop droppings. That's important because you might get lime green, dark green, yellow, white, black. Sometimes there might be a little bit of blood in it. So that's important for me to try to come up with a diagnosis. I've had pigeons off and on now for 67 years, and still people call me with questions I've absolutely never heard of before, and I have to do research. So if you call, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'll always have to ask you what color the droppings are. Or if I suspect canker or sinusitis, I'll ask, have you looked down their throat? So maybe before you call me, check out the droppings, open a bird's throat, look down it, tell me what you see. Those are important things that will lead me to an answer. And another thing I do is, if I'm a bit stumped and not sure what's going on, then I'm going to ask you maybe to send in a sample of the droppings. We do that. We have a veterinarian that looks at the droppings and give us a better idea of what's going on with the bird. So be prepared to answer questions. If you don't know color of the droppings, have you checked for canker? Another thing I'll ask you is, what have you used? It's important. If you've used a particular drug that doesn't work, I may may want to know how long you used it. Not only what did you use, but how long did you use it? Keep in mind that if you're treating your birds and you let's say that you treat them for 3 days and you see absolutely no results, then it isn't necessarily the truth that the drug isn't working, it's that you haven't used it long enough. If the product says 5 to 7 days or 14 days, do it. Even after 3 days, let's say whatever your problem is, gone away. Don't stop 3 days. Go 5 days if that's what it says. If it says 5 to 7, 7 is always better. Too many people use a drug and get disgusted because it didn't work, but then I ask them and they didn't use it long enough. Another thing I talked about, oh, hi Ryan. Which Ryan is that?
Little Ryan.
Oh, because I...
And Grammy. He's here.
Hi, Pap and Graham. I have a great grandson who's watching. Hopefully someday he'll get seriously interested in pigeons. But where were we before Ryan interrupted me? Oh, I was going to mention this time and time again. Veterinarians are now recommending it all the time. If you're going to use a medicine, follow it with a probiotic. It's just an absolute must. It's so simple to understand the whole way it works. When you use antibiotics, the antibiotics don't know the difference between good bacteria or bad bacteria. The whole idea of an antibiotic is to kill all bacteria. So let's say it works, and that antibiotic killed all the bacteria in the bird system, in the intestines and so forth. Now what's going to happen is bacteria is going to start coming back. What you want to happen is the good bacteria starts to build again. If you use a probiotic, it encourages the growth of good bacteria, and the good bacteria will take hold before the bad bacteria comes back. Hope that makes sense, because you want to use probiotics. Even with my 300 plus birds, and I go through gallons and gallons of water every day, I use something called Ultra Pro, ULTRA, PRO. Now, if I spelt that wrong, Gina will let me know, I'm sure. But Ultra Pro stands for Ultimate Vitamin and Probiotics. It's a combination of both. I use it 6 days a week, just all the time, except for when I'm using an antibiotic. So even though I haven't medicated, I'm putting it in the water. Most diseases start in the intestines. I want to keep the intestines as healthy as possible. So there's a product called Ultra Pro, but there are other good ones. Perfect Water, Perfect Probiotic is an excellent one. So there are different drugs, different probiotics. Some go on the feed, some go in the water. So it's a matter of choice and sometimes what your pocketbook will allow. But probiotics should be in every loft. And the question is, you want me to talk about probiotics?
Can you overuse probiotics in Pigeon Builder?
In Pigeon Builder?
No.
Okay. Can you overuse probiotics? Not if you follow the directions. You can give probiotics every day of the week, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's not going to be overused, but everything in moderation. You've got to follow the instructions. If it says a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon, that doesn't mean a heaping teaspoon will do a lot better. Follow the directions. If it says a half a teaspoon, it's a half a teaspoon. Pigeon Builder. When I bought the Foy's company, going on 18 years now, Pigeon Builder was one of the products that Claire Hetland, who was then the owner, was selling a lot of. I couldn't believe it. It's the best-selling vitamin product for pigeons in the United States. We literally order it by the ton and package it in the containers. It's a great product. You can combine it with a probiotic if you want, no problem at all. But it also increases fertility over long-term use. So if you want to use a vitamin and probiotics together, the perfect one would be good mixed with Pigeon Builder. I've been asked this question. We have another question. You want to read that question? I got to give you something to do.
I built a new loft. Do I have to disinfect it before putting birds in it?
Yes. In building a new loft, certainly you're not going to use green lumber. You're going to let it dry out a little bit, even if you don't. But I would say disinfectant. You just don't know what that lumber's been stacked for a while. Bugs could be between the boards, in the boards. You really don't know. And the cost of disinfecting a loft is so cheap. So don't be cheap. Buy a disinfectant like Oxine or others, Novason, and spray the lofts. Good idea. And really soak it and let it dry before you put the new birds in. Cat litter on the floor, right? What would you say?
It's too dusty?
That's one. Cat litter is treated. Okay. It's a ground up product that is treated to cut down on the smell and to absorb the urine and the feces. So being treated, I would never put cat litter down. I know there are people that do it and say they haven't had a problem, but we don't know from brand to brand what they've got in there to cut down on the odor and so forth. So if I had a choice, I would not use it. If you want to use something other than a product that I mentioned earlier, the best idea would be to put sand down, 2 or 3 inches of just regular beach sand that you can buy at any big box store. We're just about out of time, or I guess we are out of time. Our next show is March 23rd. Keep in mind, it's from 3 to 4 Eastern Time. We do accept questions between now and the next show. So if you have a question, just email it to us and we'll handle it over the next show. Or if it's a serious situation, you can email us, and if you include the phone number, I may call you before the show. I may use it on the show, but I might want to do some research, or it may be life-threatening, and I might want to tell you what to do, but then we'll use it on the show. Once again, the princess has not joined us today. If you missed
the Queen,
Gina, is not able to join us today. She couldn't talk. She lost her voice completely. Her sister joined us, and that's Alice Kay. Everybody calls her Kim. Well, your first name is Alice, and everybody's going to start calling you.
Nobody knows that.
They
now
do
the whole
know.
Facebook world knows
Bill
it.
Henderson knows it. Anyway,
geez.
Kim has joined us, and I know you've all hopefully got to know her a little bit, and I'm sure she'll be on again. So I thank you for watching. Once again, my phone number is 724-359-5355. If you want to talk to me right away, call 724 843-6889. I'll be here for a few minutes. Thanks an awful lot for putting up with us and all our mistakes and all of that. But I hope you recognize we do enjoy doing this. At least I do. I'm a bit of a ham. Thank you for watching. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, everyone. I see a couple of my Baltimore customers were on there. Thanks for watching and tuning in. And Gina will be back in 2 weeks.